So first point of clarification, for Badiou, terror is not a bad thing. Badiou's fine with terror. The reign of terror is a good thing for Badiou, however you may feel about it. It's naming the unnameable that goes too far, right? A forcing of truth because truth is weak. Truth is fundamentally weak, and this is essentially what you're pointing out in your question.
Yeah.
Right? Is that truth is weak. It has its own force, but no one's obliged to believe it by any means, right? Yeah. And so to name the unnameable is to get to the point where because the truth is weak, one has to somehow prop up the truth, and that's where it goes too far, perhaps. How is that avoided? I think Badiou says the truth is weak. How can you talk about avoiding that? You just have to encourage yourself. This is one of the reasons that Badiou's ethics is a complete inversion of the traditional method of understanding of ethics, where there are some self-evident ethical rules that we can agree on. Those are absolute points. Whereas in Badiou's ethics, there's no self-evident ethical rule. They're just guidelines, and we're always going to run the risk of going too far.
So I was just thinking that the only way that could actually exist is that people themselves have decided to do that. And amongst the people that have decided to live by that truth, they could actually live.
But the risk remains open.
Yeah.
Jacob,
yeah, I was going to ask you to talk a little bit more about constructiveness and its relationship to invariance.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about discovery of a truth, asking for somebody for a truth procedure, the way that kind of comes out and grabs me is the sort of historical analysis. Okay, what comes from this? What truths seem what truths seem to? Well, I'll just say what truths seem evident after a particular event, a naming. You know.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So let me make this the options very clear here, right? So if you've got if you will modernism, right, and you've got invariance and self-evidence, right, and that eventually leads to postmodernism. Where you've now got the idea that truths are relative and constructed, and that these imply each other. Constructed meaning merely constructed, and relative to a given situation, to bodies and language, in terms of Badiou's introduction, logics and world. So this is the history of the Cartesian project, right? Phenomenology takes up a position outside of this by saying we could take a piece from each of this, if you will, right? In some sense, truths are relative to a given situation, and yet they're self-evident. And the shape that takes in phenomenology is interpersonal, intersubjective relations. What's self-evident is the otherness of the other person, and hence truth is relative to that person. It's mobile, it's fluid, it's changing in relation to that. And I see Badiou then taking up this fourth position, the only option left in some sense, right? Which is to say that they are indeed invariant, but constructed. So that whereas in postmodernism, the constructedness of truth, this is to say Foucault, right? The constructedness of truths is to say that they are constructed through an unfolding history and this kind of thing, so that they end up garnering power in certain ways and this sort of thing, right? Play of power. Whereas for Badiou to say that they're constructed is to say that there's a process through which an actual invariant truth is pursued and genuine knowledge is produced. So the work of construction here is rather than some sort of unconscious process through which the truths, in Foucault's sense, are constructed over time, socially constructed and circulating. Here, they are constructed through a process of fidelity. Genuine knowledge is produced as that process of construction unfolds. And what they are all building on and going toward and working out is an actual invariant truth.
So what sort of repositories of truths have come?
Repositories of truth?
Well, I mean, if there's a truth that is discovered, and it's an invariable truth that is revealed by some sort of event,
okay.
And you're not trying to get too much into it, but basically you're able to pull that one single truth, or maybe a dualistic truth that doesn't really meld into one another. But wouldn't those persist after time? Like after you have several events that happen, right, and you have different truths that come from different events, after a while we would accumulate those truths, right? So
accumulate knowledge, at least, right?
Well,
because the truths always remain, the truths themselves cannot be known. So we produce knowledge in the process of pursuing these truths, but we don't produce some repository of truths. We produce a repository of knowledge, which he calls the encyclopedia of knowledge. Right? And so we constantly revise that encyclopedia of knowledge in our pursuit of truths. But we never have some sort of repository of truths. I don't know where we're at, Chris. Yeah.
So you take these last two questions, and then we'll move on. You're welcome to stick around. Matt's going to do a history lecture on the Irish Republican Army, but you're obviously under no obligation to.
Isn't it the case that there's not a repository of truth, but there is a bearer of truth?
Right.
Which would be
Those are the subject.
right, and that subject in politics hitherto has gone by the name of the party.
Right.
In art, it goes by the name of the work. In science, it goes by the name of the body, not physical body, but the body of knowledge.
Scientific truths.
And then for love, it goes by the name of the couple.
Yeah, the two.
So,
The two for him, not the couple.
oh,
So that's actually crucial for Benedict.
oh, sorry.
The couple is always seen from a third position. The two is the two as such. But, right.
Well, I'll talk about it later.
Oh, just that it just seems like in terms of a repository of knowledge, is that what we started talking about last time with art? How art is through time, you can see how it's sort of changed. You learn anything?
Yeah, but Rentier and Badiou disagree strongly on art, on the status of art, very strongly. And I think Rentier raises what are some of the most important criticisms of Badiou I've found. I don't know where I settle on the argument.
All right, I'd love to give Joe a hand for